Hello, so last week I made a little video where I asked you to ask me some questions, and a week later, and I'm gonna answer them all, so let's just get them started with. I had 43 questions, I think, and this might take a while. So this one isn't so much a question, but I love messages like this. I don't really hang around much in other people's comment sections, but I'm still a big fan of a lot of people out there. The fact that I've influenced people is extremely gratifying, like knowing that some people feel the same way about me to how I feel watching people like the late Glenn Webb is extremely humbling, and I genuinely love it. Also, John, we did talk on Instagram, and I just wanted to repeat that I love your Sadako. So I don't really prime unless I notice that whatever I'm painting takes paint really badly. Some 3D printed stuff tends to be like that. Priming is mainly something I do in the case if I kit bash and sculpt stuff, because different materials, even plastics, react differently to paint, so priming ensures everything looks pretty even. I would recommend Games Workshop spray primers. Corax White and Chaos Black are two really good ones. They both go on incredibly smoothly and really thinly. And then after that, after I'm done painting everything, I seal with some matte spray sealer meant for cars. It's probably a little bit too thick for like what I'm using it for, but it's what I've got. I hear a lot of people say good things about Tamiya and Tester's coat, especially like Tester's dull coat, I think, and I'd really like to try some of those, but I have just never gotten around to it. If I'm looking for parts, the first thing I usually do is use Google to see if someone has done the figure I want to do and take inspiration from that. If not, I may Google things like Marvel Legends female head and go through a list. A lot of it is just trial and error. I have tons of figures I was meaning to use for projects but didn't work out and are just in a drawer now, but maybe someday. Also, sometimes if I think something might potentially be fodder in the future, I tend to buy it. Like, for instance, I bought Bix from Star Wars Andor the other day just because I have like an idea for her, but I'm not really committed to it yet. Okay, to use your example, Barry and Chris aren't in the same scale because I haven't worked on Chris yet. I hate the NECA legs, and NECA Chris was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do the custom Resident Evil figures. I don't like the way they split and how there's like a big like divot in between his legs afterwards. I'm planning to moving his head to a G.I. Joe style body, kind of like Barry, but I'm not quite set on his look yet. I try to keep everything in a Marvel Legends type scale usually, but NECA does a lot of cool video game and movie stuff that just doesn't exist in Marvel scale. Stuff like McFarlane scale is just the unfortunate fact that McFarlane have done the best looking DC figures at an affordable price like ever, I think. And it started for me with their Arkham Knight Batman, and he is a little bit tall, but he's just too beautiful to not use. I don't work with McFarlane figures that often because I don't like the scale, plus fodder is easier to find for the Marvel Legends scale. Ooh, I'd love some more Overwatch stuff, Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid. Actually, I'd like a highly articulated Disney movie line by someone like Hasbro. I've seen Super 7 do stuff, but it's all really expensive. I just like a line with all the Disney characters, like all the heroes and all the villains. I think that would be fantastic. I'd also love a proper Dungeons & Dragons line, like a big fantasy line, kind of like Mythic Legions, but not everyone had to look like they're in a war, more like adventuring looks and whatnot. So I would go the Figma figure arts way and separate the elbows in the middle, then hollow out a crevice, then drill a hole into each bit and insert a Gundam ball joint. Then you repeat the same thing with the legs, but you make sure to cut a bit lower so the knee can still cover up a neutral position. As for the shoulders, you insert it into the body, then you cut off the top bit of the arm and drill down. You can repeat the same thing for the hips, but I don't really like how hip balls work, so I don't have like a really good answer for that. I prefer wired cloth. It's much more versatile than a plastic shell. My favorite figure with soft goods is my Arkham Batman. I love him. I use Milliput. It's a two-part clay that hardens over time after you mix both parts. I don't really understand the next bit, but I have no plans on doing anything with Miles Morales at the moment. And as for Ada, no, I've never liked Ada. I always thought she was really annoying and how she was always the best and could beat everyone, and then just disappearing with her bat grapple. Ugh, I don't like her. I'd give the Pirates license to Hasbro. If they put the same amount of tooling into it as the Star Wars stuff, I think it would look amazing. Their Indiana Jones line is another example of them just like nailing it. You would probably just have to find longer legs. Most McFarlane parts are interchangeable, so it wouldn't really be a matter of it not fitting. It's more like the color you would have to look out for. Shrinking everyone down would be way too much work. So basically Dream Figures. I have a really obscure figure I would like in Marvel Legends that I doubt is ever gonna get made, but then again, they also made the Wrecking Crew at one point, so I'd like Jennifer Kale to keep Man-Thing company. She's basically a sorceress who befriends him. It's really sweet. Her original costume is horrible though, so it would have to be a modern look. There's also this one comic I really like called Sunstone. I'd like figure of Allie and Lisa in their normal casual outfits. They're adorable. I guess I'm kinda cheating, but I hate Funko Pops. Some of them, namely the non-humanoid ones like Audrey 2, are amazing, but pretty much all the regular humans look awful. My favorite toy line is probably just Marvel Legends, I guess. As for the McFarlane Flashpoint Flash, no. Probably not. I don't really care about Flash that much. Okay, so I'd beat myself to death with a DVD player, because that entire scenario sounds like a nightmare. I'd be buried with my customized Reinhardt, my Arkham Batman, and my Solid Snake figures. I've never done any figure casting because I'm terrified of failure. I've had 2 pots of Tamiya Red and Flesh for like 5 years, I think, unopened. I've never actually tried them. So, top 10 action figures I wish were made. This could probably make it for a pretty good video, but like I mentioned, I want Jennifer Kale. Then I'd like Leprechaun from the horror movie franchise. I want every single Baldur's Gate character ever. That's not just Baldur's Gate 3. I'm a big fan of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 as well. I'd like Liquid Snake and Otacon from Metal Gear Solid. I'd like Senua from Hellblade. The topic is just really broad. I need some limitations here. I have like a million other things, but these are from the top of my head. I tried customizing a Marvel Select Hulk into the Ustanak from Resident Evil 6 once. It didn't turn out very well. I did not know this. So, with Winston being a gorilla would be the obvious base. There are King Kong figures by NECA, Bandai, and VADtoys, I believe. Luca from Planet of the Apes by NECA looks very gorilla-like. I'm not really sure if any of the Gorilla Grodd figures would work. I think they're way too big. The issue is that Winston is a cartoony-looking gorilla, and all of those gorilla figures are pretty realistic-looking, so you would have to do a lot of sculpting to really make it fit in. For Scar, I'd try finding a Bandai or something statue, Banpresto maybe? With a head size similar to the scale you want him in. And then after that, you would have to cut it off and drill a hole for the body. But the body is pretty basic, so I'm pretty sure you could find something. For Stannis, I have no idea whatsoever because it's like a real human likeness. I would maybe have an idea if there was a dedicated fantasy line like I mentioned earlier, but alas. I would use one of the McFarlane Nightfall Batman heads. I think they're pretty freshly available. I'm pretty sure the blue would match as well, because that Speeding Bullet blue looks really, really bright. Either that or the closed mouth Hush Batman head, but I think that blue might be a little bit too dark. I quite like Supergirl. I think Batman Superman Apocalypse is one of the best animated DCU movies. I'm eyeing the new McFarlane Supergirl figure that was announced a while ago. I think she looks pretty great. As for Power Girl, funny thing is, I've always admired the head sculpt for the old DC Direct Power Girl figure. Then in a toy store in Salem about half a year ago, I found her just sitting there for $15 in a glass cabinet. So I grabbed her without hesitation. How I got into customizing, I've always liked tinkering with figures. I remember trying to make my Ninja Turtles look cooler by painting their muscle veins black when I was like 6. Then after that I made custom Lego minifigs for a while, but I always admired custom action figures. I specifically remember looking at Arkenion's Mortal Kombat figures a lot. A cool thing about that is I saw his name a couple of years ago again, and it turns out he followed me on Instagram. So the world is really funny how it turns out. Like I mentioned, I used some random car spray varnish that's probably way too thick for figures, but it's matte. I use it after I'm done painting, and it tends to leave a teensy bit of a rough surface, but for heads, it's almost kind of like pores. I don't know exactly what year I started, but it was over 10 years ago. It all started when I got back into Batman because Arkham Asylum. A friend of mine bought the DC Universe Classics Riddler figure for me, but the head was a little bit too small and it really bothered me. So I bought the other DCUC Riddler figure and swapped heads. Then I sculpted a terrible bowler hat on top of it, and that was it. I really, really want a Studio Series Age of Extinction Hound, and after that, I think I'm good. Because I'm diagnosed with OCD, and things that bother me needs to be rectified to my personal liking. It was the Mattel Arkham City Batman face grafted onto the rest of the DC Direct Arkham Asylum Batman, I think. I can't really think of any. Usually if I ruin something, I end up buying the same photo figure again. So I'm really, really bad with money. I kinda stopped because I can't find them anywhere except in packs of 3, and I am not buying 2 repaints to get a new character. I did have plans for making Horizon, which is why I bought an Ember Collection Ellie Sattler for the head. I always thought Horizon looked a lot like Laura Dern, so I figured that would be a good match. No, not really. I don't really understand the question. The Arkham Knight head is on the current upper body already, and the Arkham City head is just kind of how it looked by default. I ended up with the Asylum upper body because the color matched better with the arms than the City one. The City one is a little bit lighter, so I just picked the darker Asylum body. No, I don't think McFarlane figures are overrated because I see an equal love and an equal amount of hate for them. Personally, I quite like them, but the proportions and the scaling, even within its own line, are a bit wacky sometimes. I wish they were more in scale with other lines, though. That's like my biggest complaint. Maybe? I have some parts for Torb, and I had an idea for a second Moira using a figure of a voice actress, but I need to commit a bit harder to it. I would definitely like to see Hasbro try their hands on DC. It would be very, very interesting. Of course you should. And I have a little bit, not enough really to have a massive affection towards the game, but they were fun from what I played. I will not make gaming vids. I actually did at one point, but they're all gone. It's either Reinhardt, Batman, Snake, or Barry. No, I don't think I will do a No Way Home Electro. I mean, there is a pretty big chance that Hasbro is just gonna reveal one, and then I'll pick him up because I thought it was cool in the movie. I work housekeeping at a 4-star hotel. My accent is a bit muddled because I speak English a lot, and my ex-girlfriend of like a decade was British. We're still good friends, so no worries there. But I am actually a Korean-born Swede. So, I think that was all of it, and yeah, that was a bit of an interesting new video idea, but I hope you enjoyed the answers, and if you have any other questions, just put them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you. So, I hope to see you soon.
Reinhardt at your service! Honor! Justice! Reinhardt! Ha ha!